Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I have my roots as a photographer before I became a filmmaker. I've been doing photography since like 6th or 7th grade, literally starting with my mobile phone, upgrading to my first camera, and then from there it's just this exponential growth as a photographer in this creative field. So today I thought I would talk about some tips on how to instantly improve your photography, especially if you're just starting out. These are just kind of like things that I've done along the way and have learned through YouTube, self-teaching, and literally just practice. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to just be in the field with your camera every single day shooting, because as much as these tutorials can help, they're gonna be completely wasted if you're not out in the field shooting. So let's talk about how to step up your photography game. Now, first off, I think the biggest thing is you have to understand why you want to do photography, why you want to be a photographer, whether it's literally just for fun to take better pictures on Instagram with your friends, or you want to make money off of this, you want to be a senior photographer, do weddings, do events, or it's just a hobby, you enjoy traveling and taking cool pictures while you're there. So first and foremost, you have to understand, the nature of what style you're going to be shooting the most, because that's going to eventually help you buy the equipment that you need to start improving your photography game. Now, let's talk about this myth of equipment, right? I think everyone is so intimidated not only by the types of cameras that are out there, but just knowing that it's expensive. It's an expensive hobby. It's definitely 100% an investment, first and foremost. But if it is something that you're really passionate about and are willing to put the money and the time and the dedication to get better at it, then first off, your equipment shouldn't matter. You can literally start shooting with your phone. Like I said, that's where I started. And with the technology that's coming out today, like the iPhone 10, like that camera is ridiculous. Portrait mode on the Samsung Galaxies, they're blowing so many cameras out of the water. Now, whether I think that iPhones will completely replace DSLRs, no, I don't think that will ever be at a place where they can completely replace all of the capabilities and features of a literal couple $1,000 camera like this. But they are getting better and better, meaning that you should just shoot with what you have. The best camera that you have is the one in your pocket. And so yeah, first thing is make yourself stand out in your field. Like I mentioned, whether you're doing portraits or landscapes or just for fun, like be as unique and have as big of your own style as you can, whether it's through the colors that you use, the poses, the editing style. You know how like when you see a photographer's picture and you instantly know it's theirs? It's because they've spent the time over the years developing their style, developing their edits. Brandon Wolfel, like when he does the neon fairy lights, like obviously that's his style. And when you see a picture, you instantly know it's his. That should be the same mentality for yourself. You want to get to a point where your pictures can stand out from others. You don't want to just be another regular Instagrammer or a basic photographer who's doing the basic shots. Like that's the worst type of photography that I see. And when people come and ask me like, oh, how do I get into this photography game? The thing I tell most people is literally just find your own style, find what makes you unique and what will make you stand out, because it is a super saturated field, and in order to get better, you're just literally just gonna have to make yourself stand out, especially in 2018 with the rise of YouTube and social media. Like everyone wants to be a photographer now, which is kind of a little bit of an annoyance to me, because I see people who call themselves a public figure and like take pictures and they're just awful. No, like actually kind of like bad pictures, whether it's they're just too over edited or it's bad composition, but they have a fancy camera, so it automatically makes them think that they're a photographer. That's like a super big pet peeve of mine. So please don't be that person, because I immediately like just won't follow that kind of page. Which kind of like segues into my next point of finding inspiration online. I think the biggest thing that beginner photographers can do is go on Instagram, find photographers that they like, are inspired by, look up to, and literally just start trying to copy them, which let me take that back a little bit. Copying comes kind of with a caveat. There's a difference between taking inspiration from and directly copying. Obviously, don't get the same model and the same camera and go to the same exact location and literally just do the same picture that someone else took. But you know, if you like their editing style, try and start by beginning to edit with their presets or trying to get as close to their image as possible, because that's going to help you learn a ton about your own photography, about your own style. You're going to learn more about Lightroom, about how to edit your photos, how to make it look a certain way than any other tutorial that can teach you that. Another thing about editing is that when you're shooting in the field, don't think that you can just fix it in post. I know that's like a common saying amongst filmmakers and photographers. Oh, I can just fix it in post. Oh, I'll just fix the exposure. But you know, that's not a good habit to get yourself into, especially when you're a beginner and you don't know the capabilities of your editing techniques yet. So when you're in the field, make sure you're getting your exposure right, make sure that the composition is right. There's nothing worse than getting an awesome picture and realizing it's out of focus or there's someone in the shot. So as great as Lightroom is and as powerful as Photoshop is, don't completely begin to rely on that to fix your photography. Now I'll kind of go a little bit more in depth on my portraits and then my landscapes. Now when it comes to portraits, the biggest thing about a good portrait is obviously the composition, your model, how they're posing, etc., etc. But also a big staple of that is a shallow depth of field. Now essentially shallow depth of field is what you see on Instagram. It's that blurry background, it's that bokeh, it's that creme de la creme. It's what makes your subject stand out because they're closer to the camera than the background. So right now, if my camera will focus, see how my hand is in focus and I am all blurry here? It's because I'm closer to the subject, meaning that the background will be blurred out, and that comes with a combination of things. First off, it mostly has to do with your lens. So the lower the aperture means you're gonna get a shallower depth of field. So ideally something like a f1.4 or an f1.2, that's gonna give you the most blurry background. This right here is my favorite lens of all time, and it is the Sigma 35 1.4 Art Series for Canon on a Canon 6D Mark II body. I made tons of videos about not only this camera, but I should make more videos about this lens because I love this lens. It is my go-to portrait lens, hands down, because that 1.4 not only allows you to shoot in lower light scenarios, but it also gives it that creamy background. If you can't afford a 1.4 lens, because those are more expensive because it has more glass. Sorry, my mom's calling. Hello? Going back to portraits, so shallow depth of field first and foremost, so that's gonna make your photos look better. And then second off, knowing how to pose your models. I think that's a huge thing that a lot of photographers either forget about or just don't know. What I did to kind of develop how I started posing my friends who weren't necessarily models is just check YouTube tutorials, check Instagram, see, you know, how people are posing other models, screenshot that and then show that to your friend, whoever's modeling, and be like, hey, put your arms like this, put your hair like this, etc., etc. Go on my Instagram, go on my website. I have a bunch of different poses that I've done over the past few years, and you know, now when I shoot, I'm completely comfortable asking a model to, you know, play with their hair or do something with their hands, because posing does have a huge impact on the outcome of your photo, the vibe, the complete ambiance of it. And then from there, get different types of angles. Like, there's nothing worse than getting the same exact pose 4 or 5 times. Like, there's no point. You're wasting your shooting time by taking 2 to 3 of the same exact pose. If the model's not blinking or if there's nothing wrong with the photo itself, then move on to a different type of pose. You angle them a different way, move your camera, get lower, get higher. That's gonna completely change the way that your photos turn out, because variety is so important. So I guess what to take away from that is, don't just hold up your camera and go and then go. When I shoot, like if you've ever seen me on a photo shoot, I'm pretty fast with my photos because I have done this for so long, obviously, but also because I know the type of poses that look good, that look flattering, the angles that the best to hit. Gotta hit them angles with your phone up, snapping like you Fabo. If you don't know this already, golden hour is the best time to shoot. That's the hour before sunrise or before sunset, and that's just gonna make your photos look so beautiful. It's a soft light, you get this nice glow around your model, and it makes your photos way easier to edit. It sucks editing in harsh light where the sun is directly overhead, because It's just not flattering, it doesn't look good. So yeah, just know how to use your light and then be wise about your shooting time, because there's only so many hours that you get to spend with a model or before the sun goes down. So just utilize that to the best and most efficient use. Okay, now when it comes to landscapes, I've obviously been traveling a lot, and there are tons of iconic places and monuments that I visited, and with that comes literally dozens and dozens of tourists. It's actually like really annoying when you're trying to get this perfect shot and there's like 4 or 5 people with their iPhones like snapping right in front of you. I'm like, get out of the way, let the pros do their work. But that also kind of forces you to be creative. It makes you get different angles that you normally wouldn't have. So, you know, when I'm shooting the Eiffel Tower, I was trying to get this like really just basic shot, but then I realized that's kind of boring, like everyone has that shot. So I would go from that side or shoot through flowers, or try and get different compositions that normally people wouldn't be looking at, because that's a huge thing as a photographer, is composition, which is perfect segue into framing and composition. If you don't know what composition is, it's how you compose the photo. It's using leading lines or rules of third. There's literally hundreds of videos about photography composition online that will do a much better job at explaining. But having a pre-planned thought process of, you know, what your photo to look like, and trying as hard as you can to not be as basic as every other tourist when you're visiting cool landscapes. You know, the type of equipment that you're gonna need for this are obviously a little bit wider lens, especially if you want to get as much scenery as possible. My go-to, which I'm fortunate to have, is the 16-35 2.8 G Master lens for my Sony. I love that lens. I just got it a few months ago, and it's really like changed the way that I've been able to capture landscapes, because having a 16mm is super wide, and I'll throw some examples up right now, but it's also great for vlogging and will just help you capture different styles that you normally wouldn't be able to with something like a 35mm. Okay, so with all those tips being said, just because you listen to my advice and watch these videos doesn't mean it's going to instantly improve your photography. The only way to get better is to practice and to shoot every single day, whether it's, you know, during golden hour or during the middle of the day or indoors or outdoors at night. Try and put yourself in as many scenarios as you can to differentiate your photography, and that will also help you develop your own style. If you realize that you love shooting at night and that you can edit it really well, then use that to your advantage. For me personally, I obviously love golden hour, as does a bunch of other photographers, but I also know people who do great indoor shots or outside during high noon. So just use that to your advantage. I hope this video has helped. As always, make sure you guys like this, leave a comment if you want anything else, and I will see you guys next time.
I'm sorry, 50 dub, I even got it tatted on me. 81, they'll bring the crashers to the party. And you know me, turn the 02 into the 03, dog. Without 40 Ollie, there be no me. Imagine if I never met the broskies. God's plan.